At first glance, this game may look casual and fun. There's small teams of 3, a scoreboard, a game going on. Just looks like they're having a casual soccer game. But behind the screen, these games represent the problem with our society and the sports world as we know it. On a daily basis, thousands of these games are played. The problem with this, though, is that at the same time, there's thousands of bets being placed. People are constantly placing bets on teams such as the Risers or the Lions, in teams they don't exist and in games that they aren't familiar with. Behind this constant gameplay hides hidden gyms, secret courts, places where matches are played less for competition and more for content. This is the world of Russian sport farms. These games are on 24 hours of the day, 365 days in a year. These games are constantly live streamed, no matter when, just for people like me and you to bet on.
To understand the story, you have to start with 1xBet, a massive online betting company that built its name by reaching sports fans all over the world. On the surface, it looks like a normal gambling brand. Flashy ads, huge online reach, and major sponsorship deals with famous soccer clubs such as FC Barcelona.
For a while, that gave the company legitimacy, because when a brand is connected to top teams, it can look like a trusted part of the sports world. But behind that polished image is a much darker story.
Investigations have linked 1xBet to fake matches, underground sports farms, and streams that blur the line between real competition and manufactured entertainment. So while the company presented itself as a global sports sponsor, critics argued it was helping fuel a hidden system built on deception, exploitation, and profit. To understand 1xBet, you have to go back to where it began. It all started in Russia's southwestern city of Bryansk. In the early 2000s, the foundation was built through small betting offices and computer clubs scattered across the region. One of the central figures identified in early development was Roman Semyokin. According to reporting and interviews, he started in internet cafes and local betting shops, and where he noticed something unusual. The sports betting was generating more consistent revenue than almost any traditional small business around him. By 2007, betting offices were operating under major Russian franchises like 4Bet. But by 2012, the structure began to change. Semyokin moved away from the franchise model and began to build independently. That shift would eventually lead to the creation of the 1xBet brand and its rapid expansion into digital betting. Alongside Roman, investigators later identified Dmitry Kazarowan and Sergei Karshkov as key figures in the company's development. Karshkov, notably, was a former cybercrime officer in Russia's Interior Ministry. This background would later add another layer of complexity to how the system was built and how it's operated. In 2019, Russian investigators opened a criminal case into the creators of 1xBet. They alleged that between 2014 and 2019, the operation generated more than 63 billion rubles in unlicensed gambling revenue. That figure reportedly exceeded the annual budget of the entire Bryansk region. The founders were placed on international wanted lists as authorities escalated the investigation.
Although the company was blocked from operating in Russia after failing to meet licensing requirements, it did not disappear. Instead, it continued through a network of offshore registrations in international jurisdictions. Public reporting describes the platform as being operated through entities registered outside Russia, including regions such as Cyprus and Curacao, common hubs for global online gambling licensing. This structure allowed the company to continue operating internationally, even as it was banned or restricted in specific countries. Despite legal pressure, the company expanded globally. It became visible across international sports through sponsorships and advertising deals with major football clubs. Names like Barcelona, Liverpool, and Chelsea appeared alongside a brand that remained under investigation in multiple jurisdictions. On one side, it was a global betting empire with billions in turnover, but on the other, it had allegations of illegal gambling operations, offshore structures, and ongoing criminal investigations. By no means is 1xBet an ethical company. They are suspected of committing a long list of crimes such as operating an illegal gambling business, money laundering, RICO-related racketeering, fraud, betting on minor sports, illegal advertising and promotion, and match manipulation. Although this company is often associated with these actions and their crimes, No one, nor anyone from the company, has ever received any life-changing punishments.
To learn more about OneXBet, we needed to look at the people who have actually studied it from the inside. Bellingcat is an independent investigative journalism organization that specializes in open source intelligence. Rather than relying on traditional reporting alone, its researchers use publicly available information, including satellite imagery, social media posts, video footage, and digital records, to investigate complex global stories and verify what is happening on the ground. Since its founding in 2014, Bellingcat has become known for uncovering details in conflicts, criminal records, and other systems that are often difficult to trace through conventional journalism. Within that organization is Ross Higgins, a researcher and trainer whose work focuses on the systems that enable financial crime, as well as online disinformation and influence networks. He was one of the main writers on Bellingcat's investigation into OneXBet, which exposed how thousands of amateur sports are streamed live to betting audiences around the world. Using open source analysis and geolocation techniques, the investigation traced where the matches were being played and revealed the scale of the system behind them directly. To help us understand what they found, we spoke with him directly. What made you guys want to do research into this? Like, what really prompted you guys to look into this and write a whole article about it?
Okay, so I'll tell you exactly how this happened. So we get loads of inquiries into the website. We got an email from a guy called Philippe Auclair, and he writes for The Guardian in the UK about football generally. Mm-hmm. And he also works for a website called Yosimar, which is the only website that I'm aware of that only writes about corruption in football. So he sent a message to Elliot Higgins, who's my brother, and he's the founder of Bellingcat. And Elliot doesn't know the first thing about football. So he sent it to me. I went to London to meet Philippe. We talked about a lot of topics. And then we met in Amsterdam. And he told me about OneXBet. It sounded incredible, but very complicated. So we went on the website and we just saw all these crazy videos, and we thought, this is a story here. So we have a whole tech team at Bellingcat who can just pull video off a website. So we had one of our researchers just pull all the videos off that website in one day. And then we had to watch all these videos and try to geolocate them and write an article around that. And that was our way into OneXBet.
They didn't actually know about this issue at first. It was only after they received a tip that they started looking into it and realized something bigger was going on. That tip led them to the OneXBet website, where they found strange videos and signs that there was a much deeper story. What started as a single lead turned into a full investigation, exploitation, secrecy, and how gambling companies can hide unethical practices. When we asked him about the exploitation of the company, this is what he said.
Okay, well, I think the problem with this whole situation is it's more of a regulatory problem. Okay, because OneXBet is one of probably hundreds of companies that do this. We're doing another story in a few weeks, hopefully, which is on a similar type of company. So if you just don't regulate gambling in any way, and if the clubs turn a blind eye to it, and the business environment is right for this type of thing, people are going to step in and exploit it, which is what has happened. Okay, so really, in terms of normalizing it, I mean, you've got OneXBet doing this, but then you've got clubs like Barcelona and PSG, who are these huge European clubs that are known worldwide, who are enabling this by allowing them to sponsor events. And in fact, since I've done the article, I'm always getting researchers at Bellingcat sending me pictures of football matches they've been watching with OneXBet branding on them. And in fact, I did a podcast with a guy who only writes about tennis. I don't know the first thing about tennis, but he wanted me on his podcast because he'd seen OneXBet branding all over these tennis tournaments. So those are the people who are really enabling them to do this,
Yeah.
because they're giving them legitimacy by doing the branding. When we do an article, we have to reach out to these clubs and ask them for comment. And they got back to us and just said, no, we don't want to comment on any of this. We don't have to comment on any of this. So they've kind of washed their hands of any kind of responsibility. And that's what legitimizes this.
Gambling companies like 1xBet can normalize exploitation by taking advantage of weak rules and limited oversight. When there isn't enough regulation, it becomes easier for companies to push harmful practices and make them seem normal. Over time, that kind of behavior can get hidden behind the appearance of a regular business. That's what makes the exploitation so hard to notice at first. When we asked Ross about the audience, this is what he said.
Well, look at the market that they're going for. So if you're, and I like to gamble occasionally. It's like a relatively normal thing for an adult to do in the UK. But you look at these streams, who are they marketing this to? It's not your average kind of punters who want to bet on sports. It's people who are desperate, effectively. They just need that kind of quick fix. A lot of these games are very short. It means you turn over your money very quickly. In fact, they have a whole section of that website that is just dedicated to marble sports. So you have 15-second videos of marbles, and they call it marble MMA, marble basketball, marble football. And it's just a guy in some room somewhere just playing with marbles. But you can make a bet in 15 seconds.
Wow.
So it's all about turnover, and it's all about feeding the habit of gambling addicts, effectively. So I find it hard to blame people who are so addicted to gambling that they're...
The people betting on these games are often the ones least likely to question what's really happening. These platforms are designed for quick action and fast bets, which makes them especially appealing to people who are already caught up in gambling. That means the companies are not just selling a game, they're feeding a habit and making exploitation easier to hide. In that way, the viewers become part of the system even if they don't fully realize it.
So do you think that they actually do get paid?
So we know that some of them do, because we've had sight of WhatsApp messages between... there were WhatsApp messages that were sent by the organizer of one of these events to people who were playing in them. And it basically said, look, don't cheat, don't score too many goals, we'll pay you such and such an hour, and that type of thing. So we know that some of them are getting paid, and some of them, again, we looked at the same things that you did. So Reddit comments and stuff on YouTube. And occasionally you will get these comments saying, I played for this organization one summer. I'm a student. It helped me pay off some of my debts and that type of thing. So you have that side of it where people are treating it as a summer job or something like that. And then you have a slightly more sinister side, which is allegations that people are being trafficked into some of these games. So with the cricket games in particular, there has been reporting that people are sent to Russia to do work, and then they're forced into these cricket games. The difficulty is that a lot of this is unverified. People don't necessarily want to speak to us. Everyone we phoned up every venue in this investigation, and none of them wanted to speak to us except for the Ukrainian venue, which stopped speaking to us very quickly once they found out what we wanted.
Yeah. Wow.
So, it's kind of a closed shop. So I think they are getting paid.
So some part of this is legit. Some people are getting paid real money and are basically working it like any other job. But what's weird about it is that while these players are clocking in and working their shifts, they're also helping fuel this massive gambling system that most people watching probably have no clue about. These aren't normal amateur games being streamed because fans care about the teams or players. These games exist because betting sites need non-stop content 24 hours a day to keep people gambling. But how much are these workers earning?
And do you know, how much? Is it,
not like the exact amount, but would you say it's like a livable amount, or is it just like just scraping by, or is it, not that bad?
I think it depends. I've heard different things. So I've heard that you can actually make quite good money doing this. But I've also heard that there are people again who are just scraping by.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is in the article or not, but I found basically loads of Indian women in a tent playing cricket, and they had played about 600 games that season.
Wow.
And I would imagine they're on very low wages. Mm-hmm. And again, it comes down to the economics of it. So whatever's cheapest.
This starts to show some of the unfairness in the system. Some people are getting paid what seems like normal wages, while others are barely getting paid at all. At the end of the day, it feels like the goal is just to keep everything as cheap as possible and produce as many games as they can, no matter who's actually doing the work. But how is it working there? Did you ever find any evidence of some exploitive working conditions, or just some just the players themselves not being treated well, or things like that?
Not really. I mean, I'm sure that goes on. Just by virtue of the fact that you see the same players over and over again.
Yeah.
And some of them look quite tired. And you do see kids kind of knocking about occasionally in these games. It's very hard because the business model is all about exploitation.
Yeah.
So when it comes to safety and things like that,
it's hard to say.
It's hard to say, and also consider these games are taking place in territory where health and safety isn't what it is in the United States or Western Europe or anything like that. I mean, some of these games were happening in Ukraine with bombs dropping 2 streets away. So it's an entirely different environment.
Since the company is so secretive, it's hard to get concrete evidence of true exploitation. From what they've observed, some of the players often appear over and over again, and some of them look visibly exhausted. In some cases, there are even children involved in these matches, which raises questions of its own. But Ross also made the point that the whole system is built around maximizing output and minimizing costs, which makes it very hard to separate normal working conditions from something more exploitive. But do you believe that they are getting real live information and being told how to score, or do you think it's a genuine just them trying sometimes? Or
so what I believe is, okay, if you're gambling on a game, you can bet on overs and unders and things like that. So if they score more than 6 goals, you can make money on that. So I have heard that they are told not to score a certain amount of goals. Okay, and I've heard that again. It's all people claiming that they've worked for one of these companies. What I have seen, which is a bit more authentic, is the advertising for one of these companies, which says that it does a lie detector test on all of the players before they go out there to make sure that they don't cheat. I don't believe that, and they have a video of this happening. I don't know what is true or what isn't true, because I mean you're basing everything on YouTube comments and sort of gossip and that type of thing. But the other thing I've heard is that OneXBet doesn't always pay out to its customers. It's pretty renowned for not doing that. So again, it's just unregulated gambling. They can effectively do what they want to do because there's no one in charge as far as the public is concerned.
Ross said he's heard claims that players are sometimes told not to score too many goals, but most of this comes from people claiming that they've worked from the company, so it's difficult to confirm. Even the things that look more official, like companies advertising lie detector tests for players before matches, are hard to fully believe. And that's a problem here. There's a mix of testimony, marketing, and online speculation, but very little can actually be verified from the outside. But why is it so hard to verify this information? Out there, do you think that workers or players there Do you think maybe once they leave, they have to sign something like a non-disclosure agreement to not talk about it? Or do you think they just, like, they themselves don't want to talk about it? Or why do you think it's so hard to just, like, find real information on this?
Well, okay, so there's a couple of things. Number one is that if you're in a country like Russia and you go mouthing off too much about your gangster employers, that's a dangerous thing to do.
Yeah.
So there's that. I mean, yeah, I think that's why. So one thing that was quite interesting that I read, this is secret information, we've not published this, but it is online, if you know where to look, is that OneXBet has a office in Belarus, and their employees were Indian nationals, and they were sending emails to the police in Belarus saying that they've got us here, our passports have been confiscated, they're forcing us to work in their offices. This was leaked. This information was leaked. Okay, so I found these emails. So basically, generally speaking, when you're working for organizations like this, it's best to get out and keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. Ross explained that one of the main reasons it's so hard to get real information is because people are often scared to speak out. In some places, especially where these kinds of operations are based, talking too openly about employers can actually put you at risk. He also pointed to leaked emails involving workers saying that their passports have been taken and that they are being forced to work in offices linked to these companies, and that they have even contacted police in Belarus about it. Because of situations like that, people who are often involved stay quiet, either out of fear or because it's safer to not say anything at all.
Go.
I think that this whole thing is just super unsettling, and it honestly gives me just like a Squid Games like vibe. The fact that these people are just in these like anonymous buildings that are super hard to find, playing these like made up matches, and they're just swapping jerseys, like playing for these random teams. I think it just goes to show like how weird the whole gambling like operation is. And we have so many more questions we want to ask, but getting information is just so difficult. And I think that just shows like how corrupt and just messed up this whole system is.
We think it's insane that this topic gets no action within the news. Since sports betting is so prevalent in our society today, you see it all the time in sports ads and TV shows, that anytime a scandal gets brought up around sports betting, it gets pushed under the rug. While doing our research for this project, we found something that sums up this whole company. This is Marble Football.
This is a quick 15-second high-paced game where marbles are dropped onto a field, roll into goals, and that's how the winner is determined.
This didn't come from any article or video we watched. This came from our own research. Two 18-year-olds were able to access this website solely with just a VPN and a normal computer. There was no verification, no login. It was simply super easy for us to bet on, and just like any other person could do.
We hope to bring light to this topic because it can affect everyday people just like me and you.
And if one company is able to get away with this exploitation, what's stopping 100 others from doing the same?